Hello everyone, Ty Drago here. To celebrate the upcoming publication of my 14th novel, The New Americans, I've decided to release the podcast that my wife Helene and I did back in 2018, when this ambitious and frankly unique historical fiction project was first conceived. This podcast, called Legacy, the Novel Writing Experience, ran for 10 episodes and is basically a step-by-step tutorial on novel writing, told through the lens of the story I planned to write in collaboration with my deceased father, Ty Drago. Want to know more? If so, then please sit tight and enjoy episode 1 of Legacy. My name is Ty Drago, and I'm going to write a novel with my dead father. Want to come? This is Legacy.
Episode 1, The Drago Tapes. My name is Helene Drago. This is a unique podcast, one of a kind in fact. First, we will take our listeners on a book writing journey over the course of the next several months, discussing step-by-step the development of a novel as that novel is being researched and written. Second, this novel will have two authors. The first is my husband, Ty Drago, who is a professional writer. The second author is Ty's father, Ty Drago, a father and son collaboration. Third, and most unique, Tony passed away in 1992, yet you will hear frequently from him throughout this journey, a voice from the grave. Intriguing, right? First, a little background on Ty. Ty Drago has published 7 novels, and we're expecting his 8th novel to be released sometime this summer. His novels are adventures of fantasy and science fiction, including a 5-book series for middle school readers. The series is called The Undertakers and has received critical acclaim and has been optioned for a movie. His short stories and articles have appeared in anthologies.
Good grief, she makes me sound amazing. Suffice it to say that if you want to know how to write and publish fiction, I'm your guy. For now, though, let's focus on my co-author. My father didn't live to see the success I've managed to earn as a writer, but that didn't stop his encouragement when I was growing up. Every story, every poem I wrote, he read. For years, he kept snippets of my writing in his wallet, whipping these out at social events to show to friends and acquaintances. Now, I love attention, but even I had to leave more than a few rooms after my dad suddenly started bragging on me. It's been 26 years, and I still miss him.
www.allegoryezine.com. So obviously, Ty Drago has some chops. He knows how to write and how to get his writing published. And this podcast will walk you step by step in real time as Ty does just that. Ty Drago, on the other hand, was not a professional writer. During his life, he worked in many occupations: contractor, insurance adjuster, businessman. But in the fall of 1992, before passing away at the age of 66, he did something seemingly out of character. He authored a novel. I know this may be hard to believe, but Ty and I are new at podcasts. To try to have a more relaxed conversation, Ty and I sat down with a glass of wine in our backyard to talk about his dad. Here's some snippets of our conversation. Okay, Ty, can you tell me a little bit about your dad?
Okay, Ty Drago. He was born July 25th, 1926 in Camden, New Jersey. The son of Sicilian immigrants. He was a loud, gregarious bear of a man. He loved to laugh. He loved to tell jokes. He was intelligent, opinionated, and an extrovert down to his toes. He defied convention. Against his parents' advice, he married a Quaker lady. He was a loving husband and father, very good businessman, very successful. And he also had some interesting eclectic tastes. He was a trained hypnotist, for example, and he was a chess master. But above all, if I had to pick one trait, I would describe Tony Drago as a natural storyteller. It was how he related to the world. He told stories. Most of these stories were about his childhood in Camden, or about life with my grandfather. My grandfather had a very colorful life. Grandpop came to this country when he was 18 years old from Sicily. He was penniless and alone. Over the course of the next 70 years of his life, he was a shipyard builder. He was a bootlegger. He was a gangster. He was a grocer. And was, to some extent or another, connected to the South Jersey and Philadelphia mafia for most of the time. He used to joke, my grandfather, that he had long outlived anyone who might want to kill him. He lived to be 93.
It was at this point that I asked Ty about his father's last year of life.
My father was diagnosed with lymphoma. He was, I guess, 64, and he fought it for 2 years. At one point, he went into remission, and we were all desperately relieved. And he stood his best man at my wedding. And then, as cancer is wont to do, it came back. And this time there was no stopping it. His last year of life, I think my father became very interested in his legacy. He started thinking about the footprint he's left on the world. So he got himself a tape recorder. With that tape recorder, my father, who had been a storyteller all his life, but to the best of my knowledge had never written a word of narrative prose ever, drafted a novel on a series of 1990s era cassette tapes. And he made these tapes, with the intention that I, as his writer's son, would someday write the novel. And that's how he spent the last year of his life.
Tell me about the Drago Tapes.
The Drago Tapes. I love the name, it's dramatic. Okay, the Drago Tapes are what we affectionately call the cassette tapes that my father made outlining his book. I don't know how many there were originally. The first tape is missing. We have no tape number 1. We have a tape number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But 7 does not complete the story, so there was at least an 8. It chronicles the lives of 3 Sicilian brothers who come to America, come to Philadelphia in 1910, and the different paths they take. It's not a mafia story, though there are elements of that sort of thing in it. It's not a gangster story. It's a story about becoming American and the 3 different paths that these 3 brothers take in their efforts, successful or otherwise, to become American.
You might be interested in hearing that the tapes had a sort of history and life of their own. Here's Ty explaining what happened to the tapes over the past 26 years.
After he died, the tapes were given to me, and they sat in a desk drawer for, the better part of a decade. Untouched and unlistened to.
Why?
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear his voice. I was grieving for my father. I didn't think I was worthy or capable of writing the book he wanted me to write. I mean, the stuff I had written was science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This was something so far out of my wheelhouse that it intimidated me. So I listened to him. Then you and I moved to a new home, and those tapes were misplaced for quite a while. And then one day, I think it was in somewhere around 2011, 2012, he found them again. And I finally listened to them in the car on my way to work over the course of a week and a half. Which, was rough, because hearing my father's voice after 20 years was jarring. Probably not the thing I should have been doing while driving. But what blew me away was the story he was telling. It was powerful and human and real and well crafted, with fully fleshed out characters and an engaging plot. At times I would forget that it was my father telling a story that I was listening to some kind of an audio book. The startling realization I made listening to those tapes, that was my father was a writer. He was a writer who never wrote anything down. I've always wondered growing up where this writing came from, because nobody else in the family wrote anything.
You mean where your talent?
Yeah, where my desire to write came from, because nobody else on either side of the family was a writer. And my father would often comment, "Oh, you got that from your mother's side, because no Drago's ever been able to do what you do." And he was wrong. He was able to do what I did. He just didn't do it. And instead he encouraged it within me. Even so, I still found the whole thing daunting. I still found it intimidating.
And so in 2011, when you listened to it, you still put the tapes away.
I still put the tapes away. I put them in a safe where I knew they'd be safe. There they sat. And now, with 7 published novels to my credit and an 8th on the way, I am ready. I'm ready to do it justice. So I'm re-listening to the tapes, and I'm going to write my father's novel.
Okay, I get why he wants to write his novel, but why a podcast?
Okay. What I am doing in this project is in itself interesting. I am taking recordings that were made 25 years ago by my deceased father, and I am collaborating with those recordings to create an original novel that will have been authored by both of us. Everybody I've spoken to about this has said, "Oh, that's amazing. You got to put that in a forward." And I thought about it. Well, I'll put a forward to the book where I explain where the tapes came from. It's 2018. Let's do something 2018. Let's make a podcast.
So what do you envision over the course of the next several months, what this podcast is going to involve and evolve into?
Well, to a certain extent, I think we're going to discover that together. But I do have some vision for it. One of the questions I get most often is, what's your novel writing process? This is an opportunity for me to demonstrate that week by week. From the research that goes into it, because a novel with this kind of an historical slant is going to require considerable research into 1910 Sicily, into pre-Prohibition Philadelphia. What were the challenges? What would compel 3 young men to leave everything they've ever known and cross an ocean to a world that is so far beyond their experience it might as well be Mars, and try to make a life there? I'm going to bring them into the writing of the characters themselves, how you give your characters depth, how you give your characters levels, how you make the setting realistic and authentic, how you establish pacing, how you establish plot, and how you use each of these components as the bricks that basically build the story from the ground up. Every author has a different process. Everybody writes their novels differently. I can't teach someone how to write a novel, quote unquote, but I can teach them how I write a novel. And hopefully my listeners who are interested in doing so can take that and apply some of those lessons to their own work. And then in future podcasts, we'll be digging deeper into my father's story. I will be questioning my father. "Okay, Dad, what did you mean by this?" Or, "I think maybe this isn't the right way to do it." Or, "Dad, you nailed this perfectly." I imagine moments where I'm scratching my head. I imagine moments where I'm going, "Wow, that's a sweet piece of storytelling, Dad." I imagine very emotional moments. But when I'm finished, I fully expect to have a novel that my father would be proud of.
Well, one of the things I think that is most interesting about this is we're going to hear from your father.
Well, part of the podcast, we're going to play snippets of the tapes. We're going to do this judiciously because it's important to understand that my father, when he made these tapes, was a very sick man. So he tends to speak slowly with large gaps while he's thinking. He's on pain meds and he's struggling to get the story out. But for all that, the story is extremely coherent. The characters are very much alive.
The next voice you will hear will be that of Tony Drago, my father-in-law. I took a clip from one of his tapes and I left it completely unedited. Here's Tony.
Ty, this is some introductory phrases or information that I think is very pertinent to the story and essential information for you if you decide to undertake the writing of a book.
As you heard, the sound quality from the old cassette tapes was poor. Also, my father-in-law was weak from cancer and chemo. His voice tended to fade in and out with long pauses as he tried to regain his breath and strength. While I left this first clip unedited, going forward the rest will be edited so that it will be easier to listen to. We will use these tapes as a dialogue of sorts between Ty and Tony. Here's an example.
Now the Sicilian considers himself an Italian, although he would prefer to stay with people of his own background, which is Sicilian. But he does consider himself an Italian. And some Italians, especially in the southern area, accept that easily. Many Italians, especially north of Rome and Naples, did not.
Dad, I don't know where you're getting your information. So until I figure that out, I think I'd better take a trust but verify approach. I'll get on the internet before I proceed. Do a little digging and see if I can corroborate what you're saying. I'm guessing I'll be doing that a lot in the months ahead. And so it starts, with a brief conversation between a father and a son, separated by a quarter of a century. There will be many such conversations before this project is complete. Longer ones that I think will prove both more complicated and more rewarding. My dad's been patient with me to a fault, through all of my uncertainty and indecision. Well, now, at last, he's been patient enough. This is happening. I hope you'll all join us as Tony and Ty Drago write a book that's been a long time coming. Starting with Legacy's next episode in 2 weeks, we will begin our journey from idea to finished novel. Along the way, I expect to encounter narrative stumbling blocks that will challenge both my skills and my imagination. But with my father's help, I know I can overcome these challenges. In the end, I intend to have an amazing piece of fiction. One that will make my father, wherever he is, smile. Thanks, Dad. I'm finally doing it. This is your legacy.
Legacy was written and produced by Helene Drago and Ty Drago. A special thanks to Andy Drago and Rob McDevitt for their assistance. The music you are listening to is called Eagle Rock, played by Wes Hutchinson, found on YouTube's library. Thanks for listening.